Defender was released in November 1980. It had excellent graphics. It had great sound. It was one of the highest-grossing arcade games of all time. I hated it. I first played Defender in the arcades in the early 80s. 30 seconds later, I wondered where my 10p had gone. Tried it again, and the same thing happened. I never touched Defender again since. 40 years and lots of gaming experience later, I find it frustrating as and I'm still I can't survive long enough to call it an enjoyable game. Not only is it really tough and requires cat-like reflexes, it has the most unintuitive controls I've ever encountered in a scrolling shoot-'em-up. In most games, the joystick moves you up and down and left and right. Here it only controls your altitude. To move you have a thrust button, and to turn around you have another button. You also have a fire button, a smart bomb button, and a hyperspace button. Others will probably disagree, but I find 5 buttons and a joystick for a simple shoot-'em-up ridiculous. The object of the game is to protect the little humanoids from being picked up by the alien landers. If they are captured, the landers proceed to the top of the screen. You can save the humanoids by shooting the landers while they move upwards. If the humanoids fall too far, they die, but you can catch them and put them back on the ground. If a lander reaches the top of the screen, it turns into a suicidal mutant, which shoots at you and tries to ram into you. Take too long on a stage, and betas appear which shoot at you and try to ram into you. In later stages, there are pods. If shot, these release swarmers which shoot at you and, you guessed it, try to ram into you. Bombers also appear. These release mines which you must avoid. An innovative feature is the scanner at the top of the screen. This allows you to keep an eye on what's happening outside the immediate field of view. Also, there are useful sound effects, such as when a humanoid has been abducted, even when it happens off-screen. If all the little men are killed or captured, the planet explodes and all landers turn to mutants for subsequent rounds. After which I don't last very long. The rights to convert Defender to home computers and consoles fell to Atari. Their first conversion was released in 1982 for the Atari VCS, and it's bad. With the arcade machine having a joystick and 5 buttons, and the Atari standard joystick having only 1 fire button, there has to be a compromise with the controls. The joystick now controls the Defender ship conventionally, which I actually prefer. If your ship is in the middle part of the screen, the fire button acts like a fire button. If the ship is at the bottom of the screen, the fire button deploys the smart bomb, and at the top, it activates hyperspace. Defender on the VCS is generally a lot easier than the coin-op. Additionally, there are only 5 humanoids to defend, and you can't shoot them. I would rate sound as average. It does its job, but is nothing spectacular. Everything else that matters, gameplay and graphics, are truly awful. Fortunately, Defender on the VCS does not rely on twitch reflexes like the arcade version does. Controls are sluggish, your ship doesn't go very fast and grinds to a halt almost as soon as you center the joystick. There is practically no inertia. Graphics are particularly nasty. The scanner is a flickering mess of pixels that is barely useful. The rest of the graphics are jerky and flickering. Your ship disappears completely when it is firing the laser. All in all, a poor game. Defender for the Atari 5200 was also released in 1982. It improves on the VCS version in every way. It has smoother, non-flickering graphics. The enemies look as they should. Sound is much improved. What I didn't like was the controls. They are strangely sluggish and twitchy at the same time, making it difficult to dodge bullets or enemies. Sometimes I found it hard to see why I was killed. I don't know. Maybe it's because I am using a self-centering joystick when the original controller wasn't. One for Defender fans only, which I am not. final versions I shall be looking at were all released in 1983 under the Atari Soft label. First up is the Intellivision version. The Intellivision's main competitor was the Atari VCS, and this version of Defender puts the VCS in the shade. The graphics are a pretty good representation of the arcade game, and sound is not bad. I also found this one of the easier versions of Defender, which suits me fine. There was an issue with landers going through the top of the screen and appearing at the bottom, and vice versa. But this didn't affect the gameplay. I'll take back what I said about the controls for the arcade Defender. 1 joystick and 5 buttons seems like a piece of cake compared to using 8 keys, unless you were lucky enough to have a joystick on your IBM-compatible PC. You had 5 keys to mimic the 5 buttons from the coin-op, you had 2 keys to move you up and down, and yet another key to stop you moving up or down. The CGA graphics aren't bad, considering they are only 4 colors. Sound uses the PC speaker, so probably sounds better here than it did on the real machine. The main problem with this version of Defender is the difficulty. Apart from fighting the controls, the betas appear way too quickly and are virtually impossible to avoid. It is also far too easy to blast the little humanoids you are there to defend. Defender on the VIC-20 has good sound, and the graphics look okay, but they move jerkily. The controls are a little bit sluggish, which is not good for a game that relies on quick reflexes. However, considering the limitations of the VIC-20, I don't think it could have been much better. In terms of graphics and gameplay, Defender on the ColecoVision is far ahead of all the other versions so far. The sound is good, and the graphics are silky smooth. There is even a parallax scrolling star field. The controls are responsive, which means that when you die, it is usually your own fault. The difficulty level is also set just about right, even though you can't select it like you can on some of the other games. An impressive conversion indeed. I didn't really know what to expect from the Commodore 64 version, but I expected more than this. For a system that has hardware scrolling, hardware sprites, and has games like Drop Zone and Iridium, well, it feels a little lackluster. I have no complaints about the graphics, the sound, or the controls. It's just the gameplay feels a bit easy and sedate, even on the advanced setting, which I'm playing on in this video. To be fair, it is one of the best conversions here, but it does feel like it is missing a certain something. With the conclusion of this video, I have discovered first impressions last, and I still don't like Defender. Neither the original arcade game, nor any of the conversions really do it for me. At least now, I don't feel the need to play Defender ever again. Until next time, cheerio.